Welcome, Sovereign. Welcome to another episode of the Devotional Anarchy podcast. And I'm so excited to bring this particular episode to you because the inspiration for this podcast came from you. I've been sitting down with a lot of folks who are budding entrepreneurs or have a job, have a regular 9 to 5, or have some gig and are wanting to become entrepreneurs, are thinking about it. And I've been also having conversations with clients who are wanting to scale their businesses or get out of the debt cycle or make better financial decisions. So this is really why I decided to just sit down and do one episode that just answers all or most of the questions and just guides a sort of best practices. And this is an episode that honestly I feel a little bit edgy about doing because it's a little more in the direction of concrete suggestions than any one of my other episodes. So keep in mind that these are suggestions and that, even though I am a financial professional, some of these suggestions are going to apply to you. Some of them won't. Some of them won't feel like the right time. Some will, right? So I want you to really check in with yourself first, check in with your body, check in with the yeses and nos that you're feeling inside of you. Because making any financial decision is highly nuanced and individualized, and it depends obviously on, how much debt you're in, your living expenses, how much security and consistency you have in your cash flow. Sometimes it depends on the economy, right? There's a lot of factors that go into making financial decisions. And the point of this, right, the point of the way that I work and what I want to invite you to do is to be financially educated enough so that you can weigh the pros and cons of any financial decision you make, that you really take yourself through all the steps, all the thought process, all the decision-making processes, and not doing pros and cons based on what you've heard, but really informing yourself fully, right? And, run things by a financial advisor if you have one. If you want me to sit down with you, I'm happy to do that with you too. If you want me to refer you to someone, I can do that as well. I'm still offering my one-on-one wealth sessions, which are, one part financial strategy, right? That's individualized to you, and one part money unblocking and capacitation work so that you can receive more and receive what you desire in particular, right? And there may be a group program coming down the pipeline. I'm thinking about it. So if you're interested, let me know. Um, and if you're interested in the work that I offer, visit my website, download my free 5-module mini course called Flex, which is all about nervous system capacitation and resilience. It's the 5 pillars that I teach in everything, and get on my email list so that you can find out when I do decide to drop the course. So let's get started. The first thing that when you're thinking about starting a business, when you're even just thinking about it, the first thing that I suggest people do, other than obviously the business plan and just figuring out like how much income you want to make, and basically reverse engineer your way there. That's another episode that I'll be doing. But besides all of the concrete business planning and projections, right? You want to as soon as possible separate your personal and business expenses. So that's like at the most basic level, you want to be doing that. And sometimes people ask me, well, when should I start doing this? And in my opinion, it can happen before you even have a single business expense. When I started my private practice 12 years ago, I think it was over 12 years ago, one of the first things I did was to separate my business costs from my personal expenses. And in most cases, it doesn't cost money to open up a bank account for business checking and business savings and all that kind of stuff. But you want to have like debit cards, you want to have like checks that you can write, for if you have a brick and mortar, you want to be able to pay the rent, or, even the trainings that you invest in, right? Let's say you have some education costs before you are able to open, let's say a travel agency, you want to, or some real estate, something based on real estate, you want to, if you have some education costs prior to getting licensed, you want to have business expenses, like a business expense account that you can use to, write those expenses off, right? And maybe the first year of your business, you'll be operating at a deficit, but at least you'll have that allocated, that was a business expense that didn't come out of your money. You can write that off, and then it'll sort of count when it's time to pay your taxes. And for business savings, when you think about the different accounts you'll have for your business, it might be a good idea to have a high yield savings account that you don't touch, where you set aside a third of your income for taxes, right? Anytime you get paid, you put in a third of that amount into that high yield savings account just for taxes. And you can have that growing anywhere from 4 to 5% each year. And that way, the money that is sitting there, waiting to get taxed, right, that you have allocated for, tax money, it's still growing and working for you. And when you decide to pay your taxes, right, hopefully on time, there's going to be some money there left over that you can play with, right? If you decide to do that, or you take the money that's left over and you invest it into something else, or you leave it there and let it continue growing, right, for the next cycle. And that's something that I did. I was advised to do that by one of the tax advisors that I saw, and thank goodness for that, because it ended up being a huge lifesaver over the long term. It gave me, primarily because I was able to pay my taxes, there was always money there, and that, just knowing that there was always money there, gave me the sense of stability and security when other areas of my life didn't feel stable. So there was always money to pay the bills in that sense, right? And even though I didn't want to take it out of there, it did help with cash flow. And in my opinion, it's also a good idea to have another business savings account where you can begin building up an emergency fund for your business. So my tax account was my emergency fund. That's not an ideal situation. So you want to be able to have the tax money separate from your emergency fund separate. So in an ideal scenario, you would have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund for your business and for your personal expenses. So you would have two different ones. And this ensures that in case you need to step back from your business, be it because of a family emergency or an illness or some other extenuating circumstance, it could just be burnout, right? Some of us get burnt out. Some of us just need breaks. Like, we can't launch all the time, right? That is not a sustainable a sustainable system. In case you just need to step back and rest, you can use that money that's in a high yield savings account, right? The emergency fund, you can use that to fill in any gaps in revenue. Which brings me to knowing when it's good to take out business loans that are going to support cash flow and where you can find the lowest interest rates. I see a lot of folks taking out small business loans through things like PayPal, Stripe, which in my opinion is not always a wise choice, partly because of the enormously high interest rates of these loans. I mean, it's like extraordinary. I would say it's extractive and really, really horrible. We're talking like 29%, right? When you think about, this is a thing about compound interest. When you think about, 10% return on your investments. Double-digit returns are really, really nice. So anything 10% and above is decent, right? Most people get like 6 to 8 is average. But when you think about that working against you, right? 29% interest rate working against you through your debt, that is unacceptable, right? 29% growth for the credit card company or the loan means that your balance is going to be growing by a third every year, making it incredibly difficult to pay off, and then you'll be stuck in the debt cycle, right? So what I did, and what may be an option for you, what I suggest you look into is, if cash flow is a concern for you, is to go to your local bank and see what rates there are for small business loans. There are special programs for people of color. There are special programs for women small business owners, right? And when I first started, I did also take out a small business loan because the way that I transitioned into private practice, right? I had private practice first. I did that for several years, and then in 2020, I transitioned into coaching. But when I started as a therapist, I took out a small business loan because the way that I transitioned into, sole proprietorship and private practice was really it was really quick. And it was like, I got sick, right? I quit my job. I couldn't sustain my 9 to 5 anymore. And I jumped into it immediately because I was sick, and I didn't create a smooth transition for myself. I didn't have the time to, and my partner at the time was not employed. So cash flow was definitely a concern. It was all on me. And I knew that it was going to take some time to build up to the 20 to 25 clients that I wanted a week. So I don't remember exactly what the interest rate was on that small business loan, but I believe it was between 5 and 7%, which is a hell of a lot better than 29. And I think it was it was either 25 or $30,000. So it was really big. It was a nice big amount. I didn't end up using very much of it. But the loan did save our butts. And, in moments again where I needed to buy some equipment because I started to get into somatic psychotherapy. I never use it to pay really big things, just kind of like little cash flow issues. And I made it a priority to pay off because I don't like having debt. I'm not ashamed of having debt, but I just don't like the feeling of it in my body. I just feel like somebody's like, like somebody's trying to control me, and I just don't like that. So I think I paid it off in about a year and a half after I took it out, so not very long. And it didn't take me long to build up a practice to where it was sustainable income-wise. Like I built up to those 20 to 30 people within the year, right? Within a year and a half. So that was pretty good. So next, I want to talk about creating recurring revenue so that you can have some predictability in your income. So as an entrepreneur, your income can sometimes be unpredictable or inconsistent from month to month, right? That is just sort of the nature of the game. And a method that you've probably heard many times from other business coaches is to create recurring revenue. So having people on payment plans is really nice for the people who are, right, for your customers, for the people who are participating in your programs, and allows you to stack your different offers so that there's a steady stream of income coming in month to month. For example, you can begin selling, let's say you sell a one-on-one program a one-on-one offer in January. So maybe it's a 3-month offer. You offer people a pay in full, a 3-month and a 6-month payment plan, right? Or maybe there's even a year-long payment plan, right? So it's like, it's really spread out. And then let's say you launch that in January, you have people start, let's say February or March. And then in February or maybe end of February, beginning of March, you start promoting your group program, and then people jump in April, and then those people are on a payment plan, right? So it's like you're stacking those, right? And you're launching your programs, your offers, maybe you're launching 3 or 4 times a year. And as one program finishes, or as you get one program rolling, you're able to then promote your next, right? Your next signature offer. And in some industries, right, if you're not a coach, in some industries, there are high and low seasons, right? And as the longer you're in your business, you're going to start to get a feel for those high and low seasons and prepare for them, right? You'll notice these trends and you'll be able to plan ahead of time with your offers so that those low seasons don't feel financially thin, right? I remember in a lot of people, let's say, and I'm thinking about like when I was a therapist more, because in the coaching industry, like there are seasons, but there's like, it's always a good time to sell. So I felt it more as a therapist. And in the summers, people were on vacation, the sun was out, people were less depressed, so people weren't coming in or they took breaks. And that is often why you see like people in the mental health field, they take August off, let's say, or they take some time in the summer off. So yeah, so you'll notice the ebbs and flows, maybe not so much as a coach, but in other industries you might see this more. So the next point is something that I wish I had done earlier and now I know the value of, and that is having investment buckets set up ahead of time so you can pay yourself first. So what paying yourself first means is that as your money comes in, right, you already have places where that money is going to get allocated before it hits your bank account, right? Before it hits your bank account for use towards your expenses. For example, like I said earlier, a portion of what you get paid is going to go into your tax savings account, and maybe some of that goes into your emergency fund account. And then maybe you have a payment, like a recurring payment going towards cash value life insurance for your retirement. Maybe a portion goes to your SEP IRA or your Roth IRA. The point is that you don't touch that money, right? Because that's where you are paying yourself first. That is sort of your long-term financial goals. That is the money that is working for you and that is not for spending, right? Instead of having that money come and you pay your bills first and then hope like there's something left over. Because like this is where I really want to ground you in reality. Let's be real. We live in a capitalist society. And from the moment we're born, we are raised to be consumers, right? From all the little commercials you see on television, like, ooh, Barbie, and ooh, this toy, and ooh, that toy, and buy, 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 have. There's always, like when you leave your house, there's always going to be opportunities for you to take out your credit or debit card. Maybe you're buying something you actually need, or maybe you think you need it, or it's just fun to have. And if the money's there, you're just going to spend it, right? It doesn't mean that you don't have self-control. It doesn't mean that you don't have discipline. It just means like it's just the environment we live in, and it takes extra awareness and consciousness to not engage in that behavior, right? Because it's just so baked into, right, the world we live in. So you want to set yourself up for success when it comes to spending and saving. You want to have those buckets set up ahead of time so that it's just going in there, and then the money that comes to you for you to spend on stuff, on bills, on the everyday, on just living expenses, that is already like it's reduced by like the amount of money that you have put away for yourself for the long term. And which brings me to the last point, right? Discerning when to splurge and say yes to yourself versus when it's important to say no to yourself and save. So maybe I believe this is the most important piece of what I'm going to be sharing on this episode, because it is about boundaries, setting boundaries with yourself and setting boundaries along with the financial education that's required to make some of these decisions. You're going to need to be willing, you have to be willing to talk through the pros and cons of both big and small decisions, right? Big and small financial decisions. For example, when I first started as a coach, I invested into all of these platforms I thought I needed. I invested in Active Campaign platform for emails. I invested in course platforms because I wanted to create a course. I was charged Dropbox fees, website on WordPress. I invested in branding photos. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I I did all those things and I invested in all of those platforms from a feeling of like wanting to be legitimate, feeling like I had to be legitimate and that legitimacy looked a certain way, looked and felt a certain way in order for people to take me seriously as a coach, you know, which meant to look like other people that I admired and already followed, which is, looking back, a great disservice to my skills and to my training, and frankly, to my unique and authentic vibe, right? Which is not everybody's cup of tea, but which is some people's cup of tea. And this is really like your essence is really what it's all about. So it also drove my operating costs quite high in those first years where I was making less money, just less money than I was making as a therapist, right? So it's like that first year of business is like it takes time to build up the revenue, the following, the interest, right? So what else did I want to say about that? Yeah, so it's like you want to be asking yourself, from what place inside of me am I investing in a particular product or in coaching or in, right? Like, is it from a place of scarcity? Is it from a place of not feeling good enough? Is it from a place of wanting to improve myself from a place of insecurity? Or does it feel like, does it feel just really, really good to have the support, right? I wouldn't want somebody to invest in me because they don't feel good enough and they feel like, oh my God, I need this. This is gonna save me. This is gonna give me all the answers, right? That's not how you want to be investing in anything, whether it's an email service or another coach. So it drove my operating costs high. And this past year, I've been reducing my costs and I invested in an all-in-one platform that streamlines all of my processes, right? And yes, it's like it takes a while to get accustomed to the tech part, like, oh my God, there's all these things this thing can do, this platform can do, but at least I know it's all in one. It's all there. And so, you can invest in an all-in-one platform at the beginning, but I don't even suggest you need to do that. I'm thinking like keep it as simple and stupid as possible. Like just basic. Start with a free email platform. Get a Wix website. Like don't stress about that stuff. Your work, right? The quality of your work, the quality of your content is much more important than that. The quality of your presence, like how people feel in your energy when you're holding space for them, how people feel interacting with your content, interacting with your business, right? That speaks for itself. And that's what's going to build your following because people are going to tell people about the experience. Oh my God, this was so good. This was amazing. Or I got these results and this changed my life, right? That's what you want to focus on is the results you get people. And of course, there are sales processes that you want to take people through. You want people to feel like intimate and that you're taking care of them every step of the way in the sales process, in all of it. But yeah, so that really focus on the important, the human parts of your business, right? So back to knowing when to splurge. So you want to be willing to have conversations with yourself and with your partner or even with your business partner about what you're going to be spending on and the reasons why, like justifications, and not the justifications where you're like, well, I really like this and I really want it because blah 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 blah, but really like, does it make sense? Does it really make sense for the long term, not just for this immediate gratification moment, but what is it? How does it impact the long term as well? Can that money be used differently? Let's say, like example wise, let's say you make $40,000 on a launch. You want to be deciding how much of that is decided, how much of that is divided into retirement planning, how much is going to be allocated to savings, how much do you use to celebrate and have fun, right? How much is going to be fun money? How much is going towards, paying someone else or, investing in coaching again, right? Investing in support. So those are all like, each one of those questions is sort of its own discussion, it's its own exploration, right? Does it make sense? Right? Because I think that a lot of people, like, one of the patterns that I see is like, as soon as that money comes in, it's kind of like there's a desire to just spend it right away. There's like, okay, well, it goes here, 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 here. You can sit on it for a while. Just sit on those $40,000 and feel how delicious that feels in your body, right? Of just like, oh, I could do this with it, or I could do that with it. Like, play with the possibility. That's part of calibrating your system to that level of earnings, right? Of financial wealth, right? So on an even more micro level, in your everyday spending, let's say even the small decisions of where you go on vacation, what kind of hotel you stay in, what kind of experience do you want to have on that vacation. Um, there have been times where I've splurged. I've decided to splurge because I wanted a particular experience and I knew that it was going to fulfill me on a soul level, right? Long term. Versus other times where I was like, staying at a budget hotel, that was enough for me. I didn't, I wanted to be more economically strategic about my vacation. So that was good enough. That felt like the right aligned decision for me. So an example of this is when I went to Montreal this past year. Like, I wanted to just have all the experiences and I wanted to go out to eat. Um, I wanted to say yes to what my children wanted, as long as it was like pretty practical, because I wanted an experience where I was really giving to myself and really surrendering to the belief that there's money that's replacing the money that I'm spending, right? I was very intentional about doing that on this vacation. Then when I went to Costa Rica for my 50th birthday, I got no frills flights because I wanted to spend the money on experiences when we arrived there. Like, I was like, yeah, who really cares about the flights? It's what happens when we get there. Like, I don't need to be so comfortable flying, as long as when we get there, like, we have these amazing experiences, right? And that decision felt like the right decision at the time that I made it. But when I was actually on the flight, I realized that I either needed to be on another airline or in more comfortable seats, because I normally, like, I enjoy flying, but this experience was really unpleasant and uncomfortable. I could pretty much fall asleep anywhere, and not a wink of sleep was to be had. It took a big chunk out of my enjoyment, out of my travel, which can, travel is sometimes a pain in the butt, but this experience was like, we didn't sleep at all. The kids slept a little bit, but I didn't sleep. And then I had to drive from San Jose to one of the nearby towns, that the name I'm forgetting right now. But yeah, like, that was a little scary because I had to be alert. I was driving for the first time in a different country, and so I needed to be alert. So it would have been wiser for me to purchase a flight where I could really, like, sleep, because it was sort of at a weird hour in the morning. Um, to then have like a better experience when we actually arrive, like the higher quality experience when we arrive, not being tired, being able to just soak in every moment that we were there. So that's definitely experience I'm going to use for the future to discern whether or not I want to spend more on the actual flight or if I want to pull back a little bit on something else, right? Yeah, and like I said, in the times that I've splurged, it's been with the intention to stretch myself into more receiving. It hasn't been mindless spending. And there's been consciousness behind the spending. For example, right, like I said earlier, trusting that more money was coming to replace the money that I was spending. And so for me, that was an exercise in manifestation, in money energetics, right? I was really behaving based on my beliefs and really stretching my beliefs in that way. So all I'm saying with all of this is that you have to be willing to have these conversations with yourself, with your partner, if it's, personal expense, with your business partner, both on the macro level, like on the investment side of things, and on the micro, like on the little daily spending, like even thinking about like, do I need this? I don't know how much Starbucks coffee costs because I don't drink coffee, but do I need to spend money on this $5, $6, or $7 coffee, or can I be saving $7 a day to put towards, again, cash value life insurance or something else, or invest in gold and silver, like whatever it happens to be. You want to be having those conversations with yourself. And I have these conversations, if you're a parent, you want to be having these conversations with your kids, because kids can sometimes, because they don't understand they don't understand living in a capitalist system. They don't understand what, you know, cash flow, expenses, income, all of that kind of stuff. They don't have a concept of that. And sometimes it's just really helpful to bring their consciousness up around like, yeah, like if we spend money on this plastic toy, how much satisfaction is that going to give you versus saving it and then getting this thing? Or, like just having them be aware of like how money can get moved around. So I'm feeling like this episode definitely has a part two. Um, yeah, so stay tuned for a part two of Basic Bitch Finance. There's just so much to cover and so many of your questions that I want to answer. I encourage you to DM me with questions. If this episode was helpful to you, share it with a friend or post about it in your stories. Tag me. I always love hearing from you. And yes, like I said, bring more questions. I'm always excited to hear from you. All right, I'll see you next time.